BIRDEATER is an independent Australian thriller directed by Jack Clarke and Jim Weir. The screenplay is written by Clarke from a story conceived by both Clarke and Weir. When a bride-to-be is invited to her own fiancé's bachelor party, or Bucks Night as it's known here in Australia and referred to as in the film, the night takes a feral turn as uncomfortable details about their relationship are exposed. I saw an early screening of this film with a post-film Q&A from the directors. I have been very excited about Australian horror ever since I saw Talk to Me back in 2022, and we've also had some pretty good ones recently like Late Night with the Devil. Now, to classify this as a horror may be inaccurate to some. It would make more sense to call it a drama thriller, but for me, this is horror. This has the kind of anxiety-inducing and nail-biting moments that make my palms sweat. This review is spoiler-free, but if you've seen the film, you'll know what I'm talking about when I refer to particular scenes. The most tense and suspenseful moments for me were from two scenes. The first being the scene where they all play the paranoia coin flipping game around the fire, and the second being when they are all around the dinner table and a particular character gives a toast. Clarke and Weir expertly juggle humour with terror. The film is really funny. The way they turn your laughter into silent anxiety throughout the runtime is quite masterful. They start the film off by having you kind of enjoy hanging out with these people, but as the curtain is rolled back, you start to feel uncomfortable for laughing in the first place. We have all encouraged an idiot by laughing at his jokes, sometimes even just to avoid conflict. Clarke and Weir wanted to hit young men close to the bone with this, and they succeeded. Toxic men are often depicted in such an outlandish way on film that the audience can't really relate to them. They can't see the character in a friend or even in themselves. With this film, I'm sure you can, especially if you're an Aussie man. The reason I say Aussie specifically is because the way that these characters talk perfectly captures how many young Aussie men talk to each other. It's scary how accurate it is. Hollywood has always stereotyped Australians, and it is refreshing to see elements of our culture depicted accurately. I rarely see it from Hollywood. This makes the film feel fresh and clever because it is a rare, accurate, and potent portrait. I'm sure many of us have been on friendship-ending camping trips or holidays where you spend a little bit too much time close to each other and you start to dislike elements of each other, or you start to fight. The tension is ramped up thanks in large part to the fantastic cinematography by Roger Stonehouse. There are so many creative shots, the camera is always active. You can tell that all the different departments on this film collaborated heavily together. The film has a deeply rich colour grade with slight grain that gives it that classic filmic look reminiscent of low-budget Australian cinema from the 1970s. When I say low budget, I mean that in the best way possible, as this film looks so good that I think it would fit perfectly in A24's catalogue. So if you're into A24 films, you should definitely check this out. Composer Andreas Dominguez, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong unfortunately, crafts a truly unpredictable score that elevates every sequence. It feels unique and helps to draw out the uncomfortable nature of many sequences. Silence is also used to great effect here. One of the smartest things this film does is it always keeps you just at arm's length from the full picture. They never give you the full story of each character. They give you just enough for your mind to wander, sometimes to some pretty sinister places. It is creepy how matter-of-fact everything appears. This is what makes it feel completely real. The film is loud and quiet at the same time. It is that feeling when you're screaming inside, but you're not showing it on the outside. I'm sure that's how many of the characters were feeling. This film also shows how friendship groups from high school can fall apart from the inside as people grow up. The cast is largely inexperienced, which just makes them all the more impressive. Mackenzie Fernley plays Louis. He expertly communicates dread. His character had me most intrigued and most uncomfortable. Shabana Aziz is fantastic as Irene. Her role isn't easy to play, as her character is at the center of the film. The film almost revolves around her, but she spends most of the film as a passenger to the men driving the narrative. Ben Hunter is pitch perfect as Dylan, an outspoken and abrasive guy that I think we have all met one too many times. He made me uncomfortable, but he also made me laugh out loud many times. Many of his lines feel improvised. I'm sure many of them weren't, but he just feels that realistic as an actor. Jack Bannister, Clementine Anderson, Alfie Gledhill and Harley Wilson are all great as well, each of them inhabiting different roles within the group. Some are just along for the ride, some are genuinely kind but have no real authority in the group. I imagine and hope that this film will get strong word of mouth. These young directors have burst onto the scene with a truly awesome movie. I am very impressed. It is very hard to get a film made. These guys had to jump through hoops, at one point having to refinance the film, reshooting large portions of it with a new actor as one of the leads. This was all due to weather ruining their shooting schedule. Please support this film in a theatre if it is playing near you. I will be watching closely to see what these actors and directors do next. Of course, I recommend this film to all young Australians and horror fans in general.